After these very brief introductions, may I call upon Hariane Santos Alves to give an introduction to the presentation of their research and activism in space. Hariane, we have 20 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Wait a minute, please. Right. Can you see the slide? Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I am Hariane Alves. I'm from GuaiCuy Institute. It is a pleasure to be here today, participating in the Democratize Work Global Workshop. The Cost of Vale is a documentary produced by GuaiCuy and an institute that advocates for the Democrats' defense of war and serves as an independent technical advisory for territories affected by the dam break in Brumadinho and the Dr. Dam, which was at risk of collapsing in the year 2020 in Antônio Pereira, a district of Ouro Preto in the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. The documentary was produced to report the damage caused by a tailing dam that did not break and to highlight the human rights violations suffered by the district population. The main focus is on the people who were removed from their homes. The Cost of Vale is the first Brazilian documentary about a self-rescue zone and the social and environmental devastation caused by predatory mining. You may have never heard of what it is a self-rescue zone is, but if you have read about the dam rupture in Mariana and Brumadinho, both in the state of Minas Gerais, you know that wherever the mud passes, is buried animal, rivers, dreams, ways of life, homes, and people. In Antônio Pereira, there was no dam collapse, but hundreds of families lost their homes because they lived in an area that would be covered by tailing mud. If the Doctor dams were to break, this is the self-rescue zone. The zone is a region located up to 10 kilometers from the dams, or the distance equivalent to 30 minutes to save one's life in the event of potential flood. The national mining agents prohibit the zones from being inhabited or have the presence of humans and animals. In the event of a collapse, people and animals in the self-rescue zone of Antônio Pereira would have 30 seconds to escape. No one can escape in 30 seconds. To get here at the hotel, I had already lived through the dramatic day of the 19th of January. I arrived here with a small suitcase, think I would stay for only 5th day because that was what I was told. This here in the slide is Antônio Pereira, as the zone of rescue zone. This here is the dam, the Doctor Dam, and the district. So can you see the proximity to the Doctor Dam whenever by the mining company Vale? Here we have the Doctor Dam, and if in case of breaks, all this region here está em Antônio Pereira. So now when I say the Cost of Vale is the first Brazilian documentary about a self-rescue zone. And this is now when Antônio Pereira is. Continue here. And I come completely unprepared, but emotionally and psychologically for what arrived me here at the hotel. So I had a small suitcase with my child for 15 days, and 3 years have passed, says Ana Carla Costa, removed from Vila Residencial Antônio Pereira. in the year 2022, who was been living in a hotel ever since, trying to rebuild her lives amid unsettling and traumas caused by the mining company Vale. In the documentary about Self-Rescue Zone, the multidisciplinary team at the GuaiCuy captured the histories of these families who saw their lives plans turn into war zones, with houses left empty and abandoned by Vale. The film is about people suffering from mental illness due to the unsettling of the future, and who, even when faced with the largest company in the world, continue to fight for justice and reparation. This far here is Bento Rodrigues, a district of Mariana, after the collapse of Fundão Dam, owned também by the mining companies Vale, Samarco, and BHP. So, who does mining affect? Now, this is the grades as we talking about here. So this is Continuo Bento, the first day of the dam collapse. And this is Brumadinho. So in the first day in the collapse of the B1 dam of the Córrego do Feijão mine. Mining companies like Vale and Samarco responsible for the dam failures in Mariana and Brumadinho, like you see in these photos, continue to operate in Antônio Pereira. The district is rich in minerals and affects not only this company, but others as well. The population continues to suffer from the increase in mining activities, with extract from their lands, blockades to UFOP, takeaway jobs, and put them at risk of experiencing an dam failure. The Cost of Vale is a denunciation, is a cry for help. It is a documentary that shows that laws and the current mine model urgently to be changed. In Brazil, we have more than 20,000 dams. This is just in Minas Gerais. We have 6,005, and we have here 6,000 people affected by the ruptured ductile dams in Mariana and Brumadinho, and more than 1.5 million people affected by mining in our territory, Brazil. I'm talking about this and I'm not showing you this slide, so sorry for this. But I can say again, who does mining affect? Who is these peoples? So these peoples on Antônio Pereira who living affects every day by the mining, by the Vale, by the Samarco and other companies. This is the people who live and who fight for a change on what's happening right now. So now I invite Professor Karina to continue the discussion, and I'm back soon.
Good morning to you all. I'm going to share my presentation here. Just a minute.
Karina, yeah, call upon you. Yeah.
Yes, just. Are you seeing it in full wide screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you all for this invitation and for the opportunity to talk about these issues that are in the core of my action as a professor, as a researcher, since the rupture in 2015. And today I would like to talk about voice. What is voice? In proximity to the discussion undertaken by Keja Silverman, voice is authority and presence. To speak, to emanate or produce voice is to manifest discursive authority and to create presence. Isabel Capello Gil, a Portuguese researcher, says that voice is at the sign of a wider embodiment of the social, the sexual, and the political, where physiology meets metaphor at the crossroads between the invisibility of silence and the visible sensoriality of the discourse. Why am I saying this? Although voice is a condition of human beings, the politics of voice is not evenly distributed in our society. Therefore, not everybody can have the authority or be present in discourse and in the public sphere. This raises questions such as who has the authority to speak? Once spoken, whose voices have the power to produce change? Which voices mark the presence of a body, a subject in its integrity? And when I arrived in Mariana to teach journalism in 2014, my students wanted to do a feature on the situation of mining workers. Even though the city has a large number of miners, sometimes entire families work for Vale or Samarco for generations, no one spoke to us. They couldn't. They were bound by NTA contracts that stripped them of their voices. The mining companies took their voices away in exchange for the opportunity to work. In order to make a living, they could not speak freely. We did the feature with only anonymous sources, and the feature was received awards at all. As André Carvalho puts it, since the beginning of the state in the 17th century, the mining activity in Minas Gerais has been surrounded by silence, one of the most eloquent of which is that of journalism. Silence or omission, I ask. I believe both, entangled to an economic minor dependence that has confined the press to silence about all the violence that occurs in the mines of Mariana and Ouro Preto. The journalistic discourse is said to be multivocal. We listen to a diverse range of people, consult a variety of documents, laws, experts, to accurately narrate the events. This composes what we call journalistic sources. This is at least the theory. The break of Fundão Dam in Mariana and then the collapse of Dam 1 in Brumadinho exposed the abyss between journalism principles and its practice. I've been following this coverage since 2015, and I can say that the dominant voices are those of the mining companies. They have the authority to declare if a dam is safe or not, even though they were the ones who failed to ensure safety or falsely claimed it in 2015 and 2019. When an event such as a rupture threat occurs, like in Antônio Pereira, reporters ask the companies if the dam is secure. They're the ones who speak, assuring the communities, the worker, the press, that there is no danger. But there's always danger. For example, in the case of the hegemonic coverage of Barão de Cocais, a city whose communities were forcibly removed because of Gongo Soco Dam instability, Vale, the mine's owner, has been the primarily source to assure the public, the families, the labor force about the security of this structure. 5 years ago, people from Socorro, Tabuleiro, Piteiras, and Vila do Congo were removed from home, facing a risk of collapse, and they were never allowed to return until now, and the dam didn't collapse. Vale practices what has been called dam terrorism, a mode of permanent frightening and terrifying state inflicted on affected communities, designed to expel people from the surroundings of their deadly structures. This allows them to continue to operate in silence, having to speak to no one except their shareholders. They choose when to speak, about what, and whom they speak to. In Barão de Cocais, there's an even more disturbing practice When the government is asked to independently assure the security level of the dam, the civil defense says that Vale assured the safety. So when the press relies in the voices of the government, the press is relying on the voice of the mining company. Scarcely in the press, we find traces of the voices of the affected people in journalism. We do not find traces of the mine workers. When they are invited to speak or allowed to speak, their voices are set apart from those with authority, as if the issues concerning them were of minor importance. Their worries, their fear, their losses have much less volume. This way, their voices cannot produce a concrete presence in the public sphere. They haunt the journalist's coverage as shadows with little or no bodily presence, no impact at all, appearing in short stories and in testimonies here and there. This has also been the case with the coverage of Fundão Dam. In those 10 years, journalism focused on the people affected. Only right after the event, yearly, when journalists come here to remember every November 5th, and in cases such as the resettlements of Bento Rodrigues and Paracatu. Apart from these specific periods, journalism doesn't seem interested in hearing the voices of those who are there, and lived and still live at the core of the catastrophe. For 10 years, they have been claiming that there weren't 19 deaths, there were 20, because a woman who was pregnant suffered an abortion escaping from the mud. But the dominant journalism doesn't hear it. Everywhere, as I'm showing you, the toll of death is 19. Why? Because that's the number acknowledged by the mining companies. These are the dead they recognize. This is also the case in Brumadinho, where the families claim that there were 222 victims, not the 270 recognized by Vale. So why doesn't journalism listen to those voices who dare to challenge the official discourse? Why doesn't journalism challenge the abhorrent term self-rescue zone that Hariane referred to, given by the mining multinationals to designate those places where people are left to save themselves from a threat they don't see and they don't know when it's going to strike? Why does journalism adhere to the dehumanizing speech of the mining sector? The coverage of Antônio Pereira's forced removal also does not depict the depth of the continued human rights violation without an end in sight. No one questions the presence of the signs indicating self-rescue zones, the signs that Hariane has shown. No one questions the scope of the nonsensical projection floods. The threat posed by Vale's Dr. Dam does not affect the credibility of the company. This is why independent, popular, resistant journalism and autonomous communication initiatives are so important. These have been the only places where the voices of those who are at the edge of existence are listened to. As Isabel Capeloa Gil points, these are the products in which human voices becomes the location of strategic resistance. In the Cost of Vale documentary, we hear not only the sinister siren sounds, we travel to the heart of the crime, where the menace is invisible, a mudslide that never arrives, and yet constant. The film invites us to listen and pay attention to the testimonies of those who can die in 30 seconds. It tells us stories of living in hotel rooms for years, stories of people who lost the dreams of a lifetime, such a bakery, a home ownership, and people who were left with no information whatsoever in a limbo of uncertainty. In the context of a media incapable of or uninterested in confronting the mining industry, independent media has been a tool, a solace, and an ally in building resistance against those unimaginable and repeated violences. It is paramount that we keep producing those films, writing fictures with counter-grain narratives, with testimonies of those who survived to tell. The communication I believe in, the journalism I teach and support, is that of the people. For me, the only possible journalism and communication should be that which, in the wake of a story, an event, asks, who are the most vulnerable? Those are the first, sometimes the only voices that matter and that we should hear. Those are the people who need to be made present and visible, people we need to believe in. Like the film does, we need to produce the presence of those subjects in the public sphere. The mining money has plenty of places in media to make their speeches. The affected people sometimes don't have a place at all. And it is an ethical imperative for a communication committed to the human being, to the planet, to guarantee a place to hear the voices in suffering, a space where those voices can produce speech, authority, power, and change. Thank you very much, and I'm welcome to join the discussion.